What if I told you that the life you're living right now will keep repeating itself? Same failures, same heartbreaks, same frustrations until you face the part of yourself you've been hiding. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the side of you that you deny, but that secretly rules your choices, your relationships, and your destiny. In this video, we dive into the dark philosophy of the unconscious and reveal why ignoring your shadow keeps you stuck in endless cycles and how confronting it can transform everything. If you want to break free from repetition and uncover the truth Jung tried to warn us about, stay until the end. And if this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Your support helps bring more of these powerful insights to light. Carl Jung warned us of a truth most people refuse to hear. If you do not face your shadow, you are doomed to repeat your life over and over again. The faces may change, the circumstances may shift, but the pattern remains the same. Failed relationships, recurring conflicts, constant frustrations, they are not accidents. They are the unconscious demanding recognition. And until you listen, it will trap you in repetition. Think about your own life. How many times have you found yourself in the same situation, despite promising you would never go back? The same toxic partner in a different body, the same humiliating failure at a new job, the same cycle of self-sabotage, no matter how determined you were to change. This is not bad luck. This is your shadow, your repressed fears, desires, and wounds, pulling the strings from beneath the surface. The shadow operates like an invisible script. You believe you're making free choices, but in reality, you are following a program you refuse to acknowledge. If you repress your anger, you will keep attracting people who provoke it. If you deny your vulnerability, you will keep meeting people who expose it. If you bury your desires, you will keep sabotaging any chance of fulfillment. The unconscious repeats the lesson until you finally learn it. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Let's be provocative. What if the suffering in your life is not punishment from the outside, but sabotage from within? What if you are the architect of your own disappointments, not because you want them, but because you refuse to face the parts of yourself that create them? People resist this idea because it robs them of the comforting illusion that their problems are external. It forces them to admit that their greatest enemy may not be the world but themselves. Men and women before you fell into this trap. They worked hard, chased success, searched for love, but ended up in the same cycle again and again. They blamed others, cursed fate, and repeated the same choices dressed in new disguises. They never realized that the common denominator in all their problems was not the world, it was their shadow. And so they wasted decades trapped in repetition, living the same life with different details, never breaking free. Here's the turnaround. The shadow is not your jailer, it is your teacher. The cycle repeats not to punish you, but to wake you up. Every repetition is a message. Look here. This is the part of yourself you are refusing to see. The toxic relationship forces you to face your fear of abandonment. The humiliating failure forces you to face your fear of inadequacy. The endless frustration forces you to face the desires you bury under respectability. The shadow is merciless, but it is also purposeful. It will keep dragging you into the same cycle until you have no choice but to confront it. This is why Jung saw facing the shadow as the beginning of transformation. The moment you recognize the pattern and admit its source, the cycle begins to break. You are no longer blindly repeating. You are consciously choosing. Integration means owning the parts of yourself you deny, admitting your anger, your fear, your desire, your weakness. Once owned, they lose the power to control you from the dark. Ask yourself, what patterns keep repeating in your life? What cycle are you trapped in? Until you answer honestly, you will keep living the same life in endless variations. The job may change, the partner may change, the city may change, but the lesson will not. The shadow does not let you escape through distraction. It demands confrontation. Jung's dark philosophy is not comfortable, but it is liberating. You are not cursed, you are unconscious, and the moment you turn inward, the cycle can finally end. Because the truth is simple. The life you are living now will not change until you face the shadow that creates it. Carl Jung revealed one of the most uncomfortable truths about human psychology. The traits you despise most in others are often reflections of yourself. This is the phenomenon of projection, the unconscious defense mechanism that allows you to avoid your own flaws by condemning them in someone else. You think you are judging another person, but in reality, you are staring into a mirror. The shadow has a cruel sense of humor. It uses the people around you to show you the parts of yourself you deny. Think about it. Why do certain people trigger you so intensely, while others barely affect you? Why does one person's arrogance enrage you, while another's slides past unnoticed? Why do some flaws feel personal, like an attack, even when they have nothing to do with you? It's because those qualities are buried inside you. The anger you repress, the pride you deny, the selfishness you disown, these are the very traits that irritate you most when you see them in someone else. Let's be blunt. The person you cannot stand is often the clearest mirror of your shadow. This is why Jung insisted that projection is both dangerous and essential. Dangerous, because it blinds you to your own truth. Essential, because it offers you a chance to recognize the hidden parts of yourself. Every person you judge harshly is an invitation to self-discovery, but most people ignore the invitation. They prefer to live in deception, believing that the problem is always out there, never within. Now let's provoke the question. What if most of your enemies are illusions created by your own psyche? What if the people you despise most are simply carrying the traits you refuse to claim? People resist this because it's far easier to blame others than to confront themselves. Blaming someone else allows you to feel righteous. Confronting yourself forces you to feel vulnerable. But until you recognize the mirror, you will remain blind. History is full of examples of projection on a massive scale. Entire societies have scapegoated groups, accusing them of greed, corruption, or immorality, qualities that, in truth, belong to the accusers. Wars have been fought, injustices committed, and lives destroyed because people preferred to project their shadows rather than own them. Jung warned that unless individuals learn to recognize projection, humanity will continue to repeat these destructive cycles. The hatred you direct outward is almost always the hatred you cannot face inward. The men and women before you lived in this blindness. They spent their lives gossiping, blaming, resenting, and condemning others, never realizing that what disturbed them was their own reflection. They believed they were surrounded by liars, fools, and villains. They never admitted that those traits lived inside them too. Their energy was wasted on fighting mirrors, and so they never fought the real enemy, their own unconscious. Here's the turnaround. Projection is a gift disguised as irritation. The people who trigger you the most are your greatest teachers. They show you the qualities you need to integrate in yourself. If someone's arrogance enrages you, perhaps it's because you've denied your own need for self-assertion. If someone's dishonesty infuriates you, maybe it's because you've buried your own uncomfortable truths. If someone's selfishness disgusts you, perhaps it's because you've suppressed your own need to prioritize yourself. Integration does not mean becoming arrogant, dishonest, or selfish. It means acknowledging these potentials so they stop controlling you from the dark. Ask yourself, who do you hate and why? What if the answer has less to do with them and more to do with you? This question is not pleasant, but it is powerful. Because once you admit the mirror, you can reclaim the energy you've wasted on projection. Instead of fighting others, you begin to transform yourself. Jung's philosophy is merciless. Until you face what you hate in others, you will never stop hating yourself. And until you own those disowned parts, you will continue to live a life filled with enemies that are nothing more than reflections of your shadow. The shadow does not lie. It simply waits for you to recognize it. In the people you condemn, in the traits you reject, in the mirrors you try to break instead of facing. Carl Jung believed that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. Not meaningless images, but symbolic messages carrying truths your conscious mind refuses to face. Every night, while your waking self clings to logic and control, your unconscious speaks in symbols, archetypes, and images. Yet most people dismiss dreams as random, nonsensical, or even embarrassing. They fail to realize that ignoring dreams is like ignoring a warning sign on the road. The unconscious is speaking, and your refusal to listen comes at a cost. Why does the unconscious speak in dreams? Because your waking mind cannot handle raw truth. If you were confronted directly with everything you repress, your fears, desires, wounds, you would crumble. The dream disguises these truths in images, forcing you to work for their meaning. A shadowy figure chasing you may be the fear you avoid by day. Falling into endless darkness may symbolize the loss of control you refuse to admit. Being naked in public may reveal your vulnerability, your shame, your fear of exposure. Dreams dramatize what you deny. Nightmares are even more merciless. They are the psyche's emergency alarm, the unconscious raising its voice because you've ignored its whispers. That recurring dream of being trapped? It may be your unconscious warning you about the life you've built, safe, respectable, but suffocating. That nightmare of drowning, it could be your emotions, long suppressed, demanding to be felt before they consume you. Jung warned that nightmares are not punishments, they are wake-up calls. But most people roll over, dismiss them, and wonder why their lives fall into crisis later. Let's be provocative. What if your worst nightmares are not enemies to escape, but guides to follow? What if the images you fear most at night are actually the truths that could set you free? People resist this because it terrifies them. To admit the message of a nightmare is to admit that your carefully constructed life may be built on denial. It means facing the fact that your unconscious knows you better than you know yourself. The men and women before you ignored these messages. They had dreams warning them of their own flaws, their toxic relationships, their buried wounds. They laughed them off, called them meaningless, or covered them with superstition. And so their unconscious took harsher measures: breakdowns, divorces, illnesses, failures. What they refused to face in dreams returned as disasters in waking life. Jung saw it clearly. When the unconscious is ignored, it does not go away, it escalates. Here's the turnaround. If you dare to listen, dreams become your greatest allies. They are not random, they are mirrors. They reveal what your waking mind refuses to see. They show you the shadow traits you project, the wounds you deny, the desires you bury. They guide you toward individuation, toward becoming whole, but only if you take them seriously. Jung encouraged people to record their dreams, study their symbols, and ask, what is my unconscious trying to tell me? This is not easy work. It requires humility. It means admitting that your conscious mind is not in control, that there are deeper forces shaping your life. But once you admit this, the symbols begin to speak. That monster in your nightmare may be your shadow, demanding recognition. That endless road may be your soul's path, urging you forward. That recurring death may symbolize the transformation you fear but desperately need. Ask yourself, what dreams keep returning to you? What nightmares refuse to leave? Until you face their meaning, you will keep living under their influence. Ignoring dreams does not silence the unconscious. It only ensures that its warnings will appear in harsher forms. Jung's dark philosophy is blunt. You cannot escape the messages of your unconscious. You can ignore them, but they will not ignore you. Dreams and nightmares are not random. They are revelations. And the longer you deny them, the more your life will be shaped by forces you refuse to acknowledge. Carl Jung described the persona as the mask you wear to face the world. It is not your true self, but a carefully constructed image designed to protect you, gain approval, and help you survive in society. Without a persona, life would be impossible. You cannot expose every thought, every desire, every fear to the public eye. But Jung issued a stark warning. When you mistake the mask for your identity, you become a prisoner of your own performance. You live not as yourself, but as a character in a play you did not write. The persona is seductive because it works. Society rewards it. The hard-working employee mask earns promotions. The polite citizen mask earns respect. The good partner mask earns praise. You are celebrated not for who you are, but for how well you wear your mask. And slowly, almost without noticing, you begin to confuse the mask with your face. This is the illusion. You are applauded, admired, even envied, yet deep inside, you feel hollow. Jung saw this hollowness as a psychological death. A person over-identified with their persona may appear successful, stable, and controlled, but they are living half a life. The other half, the shadow, the desires, the wounds, the truths, remains buried, exiled to the unconscious. The result is a split existence, outwardly respectable, inwardly suffocating. The persona is supposed to be a tool, but it becomes a prison. Let's be provocative. What if the respectable life you are proud of is nothing more than a performance? What if the career you've built, the relationships you maintain, even the values you proclaim are just costumes stitched together to please others? People resist this idea because it shakes the foundation of their identity. If the persona is not the real self, then who are you? This question terrifies most people, so they avoid it. They cling to their masks, even if it means slowly killing the parts of themselves that don't fit the performance. The men and women before you made this mistake. They wore the mask of the dutiful worker until retirement, only to discover they had no idea who they were without their job. They wore the mask of the perfect parent, only to find themselves empty once their children left home. They wore the mask of the ideal citizen, only to realize they had silenced every authentic impulse just to belong. Outwardly, they were admired. Inwardly, they were strangers to themselves. Here's the turnaround. The persona is not evil. It is necessary. But it must remain a mask, not an identity. Jung believed individuation begins when you step beyond the persona and confront what lies beneath. That means admitting the parts of yourself the mask hides, your anger, your longing, your fears, your contradictions. It means reclaiming your authenticity, even if it costs you approval. The persona helps you survive, but it cannot help you live. Ask yourself, how much of your life is real and how much is just performance? Are you in love with your partner or with the image of being a good partner? Do you work for fulfillment or for the mask of success? Do your beliefs reflect your soul or just the costume society told you to wear? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are the doorway to truth. Jung's philosophy is ruthless but freeing. The persona will always be with you. You cannot live without it. But you must never forget, it is a mask. The moment you believe it is your face, you lose yourself. The only way out is through awareness. You must hold the mask lightly, using it when needed, but never confusing it with your essence. Because the truth is this: a mask may earn applause, but only authenticity brings freedom. And until you dare to step beyond your persona, you will keep living only half a life, safe, respected, admired, but never truly alive. Carl Jung made a distinction that most people still refuse to understand. Repression is not the same as strength, and integration is not the same as indulgence. Repression means pushing away the parts of yourself you don't want to see. Your anger, your envy, your fear, your desires, and pretending they don't exist. Integration means facing those parts, owning them, and giving them a place in your conscious life. The difference is crucial, because repression keeps you trapped in the same cycles, while integration sets you free. Why do people repress instead of integrate? Because repression feels safer. It allows you to maintain the illusion of control, the comfort of being good, the approval of society. You bury your rage and call it patience. You hide your ambition and call it humility. You silence your desire and call it discipline. Outwardly, you look virtuous. Inwardly, you are divided. Jung warned that what you repress does not disappear. It lives on in the unconscious, shaping your life from the shadows. This is why you keep repeating the same mistakes. You repress anger, and it leaks out as passive aggression or explosive outbursts. You repress desire, and it returns as obsession, addiction, or secret betrayal. You repress fear, and it becomes paralysis disguised as caution. Repression is not control, it is self-deception. And the more you repress, the more the shadow grows until it dominates you completely. Let's be provocative. What if the very traits you are proud of, your patience, your discipline, your self-control, are just masks hiding the chaos of repression? What if your virtue is nothing more than fear of facing your own shadow? People resist this idea because it undermines their identity. They cling to repression as proof of strength. But Jung saw clearly, repression is weakness because it means you are too afraid to meet yourself. The men and women before you fell into this trap. They repressed their anger until it consumed their relationships. They repressed their desires until they lived double lives. They repressed their fears until they became prisoners of routine, too terrified to grow. They thought they were building strength, but they were only feeding the unconscious forces that ruled them. Their tragedy was not their flaws. It was their refusal to integrate them. Integration is different. It requires courage, because it forces you to admit what you'd rather deny. To say, yes, I am angry. Yes, I am envious. Yes, I desire. Yes, I fear. But once admitted, these forces lose their power to control you. Anger, when integrated, becomes strength and boundary. Envy becomes ambition and clarity of desire. Fear becomes caution and wisdom. Desire becomes vitality, and creativity. Integration transforms poison into medicine, shadow into gold. Jung called this process individuation, the journey to becoming whole. But integration is not indulgence. It does not mean surrendering to every impulse. It means owning your impulses so you can choose consciously how to use them. The man who integrates his aggression does not become violent, he becomes assertive. The woman who integrates her desire does not become reckless, she becomes alive. The individual who integrates their fear does not become paralyzed, they become wise. Integration does not enslave you, it frees you. Ask yourself, what have you been repressing? What emotions, desires, or fears have you buried under respectability? Until you face them, they will continue to rule your life from the shadows. The cycle will repeat again and again until you choose integration. Jung's philosophy is not comfortable, but it is liberating. Repression will keep you stuck, repeating the same patterns, mistaking virtue for avoidance. Integration will break the cycle, giving you the power to live consciously, not reactively. The truth is simple. Repression chains you. Integration frees you. And until you choose integration, you will never escape the endless loop of your unconscious. Carl Jung believed that transformation does not come from chasing light, success, or virtue. It comes from wholeness. And wholeness is only possible when you face the parts of yourself you fear the most. The shadow is not the enemy, it is the missing half of your being. Until you confront it, you will live as a fragment, repeating the same cycles, wearing the same masks, and calling the performance life. Real change begins the moment you stop running from yourself. The modern obsession with self-improvement often misses this point. People try to transform by adding more habits, more affirmations, more discipline, more positivity. They stack tools and techniques on top of themselves, hoping to become stronger, happier, more enlightened. But Jung saw the flaw. Adding light does nothing if the darkness remains unacknowledged. You cannot escape your shadow by piling on affirmations. You cannot transform while half of you is exiled. Wholeness demands inclusion, not addition. Think about the cost of ignoring this. You can build the perfect career, but if your shadow contains unacknowledged envy, it will corrode your relationships. You can cultivate the image of the perfect partner, but if your shadow hides resentment, it will poison your intimacy. You can meditate, pray, or read every book on self-growth, but if your shadow is full of unacknowledged anger, it will erupt in ways that undo your progress. Transformation does not come from ignoring the shadow, it comes from bringing it into the light. Let's be provocative. What if the very flaws you are ashamed of are not obstacles but gateways? What if the rage you hide could become courage? What if the fear you deny could become wisdom? What if the desire you repress could become creativity? Jung's alchemy was simple. The parts of you you despise hold the very power you seek. But to access it, you must stop treating your shadow as an enemy and start seeing it as an ally. The men and women before you misunderstood this. They tried to transform by chasing ideals. They tried to be perfect, pure, and untouchable. They buried their shame, their envy, their fear, their longing, thinking they were evolving. But in truth, they were fragmenting. Their lives became divided between the persona they showed and the shadow they buried. Outwardly, they looked admirable. Inwardly, they were incomplete. Their transformations were illusions because they refused the one step that mattered, facing the shadow. Wholeness demands integration. This does not mean indulging your darkness, it means owning it. The person who acknowledges their aggression can channel it into assertiveness. The person who admits their envy can turn it into ambition. The person who faces their fear can use it as guidance. Integration turns poison into medicine. Wholeness is not about erasing flaws. It is about weaving them into strength. Ask yourself, what part of you are you still refusing to face? What truth do you bury because it feels too shameful, too dangerous, too unacceptable? That is the doorway to transformation. The breakthrough you seek is hidden in the very part of yourself you are most afraid to confront. Jung's philosophy is blunt. Until you walk through that doorway, nothing will truly change. Here's the turnaround. Transformation is not becoming someone new. It is becoming fully yourself. Wholeness means you no longer fear exposure because nothing is hidden. You no longer live in repetition because the unconscious is no longer driving your life from the shadows. You no longer depend on masks because authenticity has replaced performance. Transformation is not the victory of light over dark. It is the marriage of the two. The truth is this: you will keep living the same life until you face your shadow. But the moment you dare to confront it, everything changes. The cycles break, the masks fall, and the fragmented self becomes whole. This is the power of individuation, the transformation Jung saw as the true purpose of life. Not perfection, not purity, wholeness. Because in the end, it is not light alone that sets you free. It is the courage to face your darkness and to claim it as your own.